Welcome to the New Chemist. We're glad you're listening. Feel free to download this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Here on the New Chemist, we discuss chemistry, which simply put is the science of change, as well as careers, community research, and COVID-19. We're happy you're tuning in. My guest today is Dr. Bladmir Ramos. Thanks for joining me today. It is good to hear from you. Just briefly, I'll inform my audience about you. Dr. Bladmir Ramos-Alvarado is the principal investigator of the Interfacial Phenomena Lab at Penn State University. He's a member of the Materials Computation Center at Penn State and an associate of the Institute for Computation and Data at Penn State. Dr. Ramos obtained a bachelor's and master's degree both in mechanical engineering from the University of Guanajuato in Mexico in 2009 and 2011, respectively. Later on, he continued his education at the Georgia Institute of Technology, where he obtained a PhD and a master's degree in mechanical engineering in 2016. After brief postdoctoral and instructor appointments at Georgia Tech, Dr. Ramos joined the Department of Mechanical Engineering at Penn State University as an assistant professor in May of 2017. Please welcome Dr. Bladmir Ramos-Alvarado. Thank you, Dr. Ramos-Alvarado, for joining me today. It's good to have you on. So, what has been some of the most beneficial advice you have received?
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Let me see. Some beneficial advice. Usually they come from my mentors, and I have had many of them. And the most beneficials came from President Peterson, the president of Georgia Tech. He didn't have to say a lot. He would mentor me with his example. So being humble, honest, and disciplined. That's the best advice that I received from him.
Okay. Yeah, that's very important. Yeah, because I think I come to understand that, those three attributes will carry you a long way in your academic career. So why did you choose mechanical engineering as a field to do your doctoral studies in?
Oh, that's a funny story, because actually when I chose my major when I was going to college, I actually didn't want to be an engineer. I wanted to be a physicist, but the physics school in Mexico was not in my hometown, so I had to travel somewhere else, pay rent, and support myself there, and I couldn't afford it. So I went to the engineering school, and I just chose out of the menu, and I just continued doing that. So eventually my PhD was just a natural consequence to all the activities that I had done before. So yeah, I never had the courage to go to physics, back. I met a friend who actually did it. He was in the same situation as me.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, after college, he went for his degrees in physics, but I didn't have the courage.
Okay. Well, it looks like it turned out well for you, so that's okay. So, So how have you maintained vision and teamwork in your environment? How do you maintain that?
All right. Yeah, so vision of you mean the activities that I do in my lab? Well, it's deep introspection of the goals that you want to achieve, right? It's not something that you can just put it on paper once and put it on the website of your lab and just let it be there. No, it's a continuous activity to keep revising what you want to achieve in your career. And teamwork, well, it happens that I have always been surrounded by amazing people, very smart, productive students and colleagues. They just motivate, it eases the teamwork activity. I mean, it's like I'm cheating, right? I have always been surrounded by just fantastic students and fantastic colleagues. So it's really easy to do.
Yeah, that's some would say serendipity, some would say luck, some would say blessed, some would say it's just privilege, I don't know. But at the end of the day, it's good. It's good to have a good environment surrounding you. Because people have made the statement, birds of a feather flock together, and a man is known by the company that he keeps, as well as the environment helps to shape and mold you as you progress and proceed through your academic career. So yes, good environments do play a big role. So you're a professor at Penn State. You did your PhD PhD advisor was the president of Georgia Tech. How would you say you've been so successful thus far? And what would you attribute to your success? Yeah.
Oh man. If you mean my success as a professor, I mean, it's too early to say that. I've been doing this just
as a student.
Yeah, as a student, well, I would say discipline and hard work. There's no secret recipe. There are many inspirational talkers and TEDx, TED Talks, and books and whatever. There's many things that you can find out there to how to be successful at X. But I think the key to everything and anything is just to be disciplined and hard and really just work hard. Don't fool around, and just be disciplined. If it has to be done, it has to be done. Don't get distracted. And that's my main inspiration from the mentors that I have had. Just the discipline, even from my parents. Just be disciplined.
Yeah. So I would say along the same lines of discipline. Would you say that was something that was taught to you, or do you think you were just born that way? Or how do you say you developed discipline? Was it something that you learned in the environment? How would you say you learned that?
Yeah, there's a little bit of both, since I didn't grow up in a very, healthy environment in Mexico. It was my family and I were really poor, and the kinds of things that you see around in those poor neighborhoods. You just try to be focused and not imitate what you see around your community, right? So you need to have a clear mind of what you have to do. And yeah, I think I had some of that since I was born, that discipline. But also my mom was really tough, and she always tried to teach me in that way of being, to be disciplined. So it has to be done. You have to get it done. This is due tomorrow. You have to get it done. And even before, she was that tough.
Okay, yeah, that's important. That's important. I can relate to that as well. Having parents who are very disciplined and determined, and make sure you replicate and represent them in terms of that as well. So, given all of your responsibilities and accomplishments, how do you maintain a balanced life? How have you maintained a balanced life so far? Because you have a family, you have a job, you have academic responsibilities, you're part of different labs.
Right.
How are you maintaining balance? And you're also in a pandemic too. So
I know.
Yeah. So how are you maintaining balance?
Right. Well, again, this comes back to the same topic that we were discussing: discipline. That characteristic that you're born with, or that you develop through the years, or that you need to achieve somehow, that helps you a lot. For example, I have colleagues that they have a very structured schedule for the things that they have to do. Like activity 1 from 8 to 9, activity 2, I don't do things like that to, divide the activities. Sometimes it takes more time, but you need to be aware of all your responsibilities, as you're saying. So you need to dedicate some time for your research, for your teaching, for your instruction every day. And then at some point you need to say, stop, that's enough work. You are not your job. You're not your job. It's time to go take care of myself, go take care of my body, working out or running, whatever you like to do, play some sports, whatever it is that you have to do to take care of your body and your mind. If you have to go to read, if you have to go watch a movie, right? Turn on the TV and see what's on. If you like to listen to a podcast like this one, right? Take care of your mind, and then take care of your family. Kids, they're growing up. They need to see their parents around. You need to play with them. You need to teach them. You need to share time with them. And then there's, your spouse. And you have to you have to be a husband. You have to be there. You have to be supportive. You have to help with the responsibilities of the house. And at some point, as I said, it's discipline. And specifically in the field of academia, you can work nonstop. It's a fact.
Yeah.
You can go on and on and on, and it's a never-ending job. It's really hard to say, okay, this is over. How can you tell it's over? Right? Research never over. There's always
Yeah.
there's more that you can do all the time, and
Yeah.
also teaching and but at some point you need to say, stop. This is enough, and then you keep moving on. But again, this comes back to the discipline aspect. And
So how are you able to find a benchmark or a landmark to stop? How are you able to do that? Because you said
I
it must never end. Or do you have it like structured in your day that this is my cutoff time? How do you stop?
right. So at some point, I would say, I mean, maybe I do have some kind of a structure. So let's say 6 p.m., 5 p.m., whatever was done was done. It's time to go upstairs. Well, now I'm here in my basement working from home. So it's time to go upstairs, be with the family, help out with the dishes, with dinner, and then have some time with my spouse, some time for working out. I think it's just straight cut. It's a time of the day. That's it. That's it. Okay, I didn't finish this. Well, that's your problem. That's your problem for tomorrow.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
and yeah, and next day you have to work harder. If not, this is going to be piling and piling up.
Yeah, that's true. So even as a graduate student, because I'm just starting graduate school and I am progressing through it, of course it's a different modality, different level of work, a
Right,
different amount of rigor with chemistry. So how were you able to find balance as a graduate student?
right.
You
So as a
you
grad, mhm,
yeah, as a graduate student, how were you able to find balance, even at Georgia Tech?
right. So as a grad student, I already had a family. So my first
Okay.
boy was born during my second semester of PhD studies. But I cannot take credit. My wife was very supportive. I think you met her, right? And you met my
I
kid.
did. I did.
Yeah. So she was very, very supportive. We had a very good division of labor at some point that it has to be put out on the table, right? So, you know what? I'm doing this thing. It's taking a lot of time. It takes plenty of cognitive abilities to be in the lab, to be doing research, to, taking classes and whatever. So my wife at the beginning was very supportive. So I kind of was absent, at that point, I think I was a little bit absent from family activities, but I had
Uh,
that supporting system. But then I did the same thing as I'm telling you right now. I've been carrying this way of conducting my job since grad school. At some point, you say stop, and stop is just stop. Don't think about it. Don't stress about it. Just stop and go be with your baby. Be with your wife. And again, as I'm saying, take care of your body. Take care of your
yeah,
mind. Yeah,
yeah,
work out. Super
yeah,
important.
yeah. I agree. Exercise is very important. It helps keep you balanced and it's good for mental health. I
Right.
completely agree. So, in terms of your academic ideas, in terms of your research and all the things you're working on, what would you say have been your most effective or interesting ideas or impactful ideas? If you had to sum up or describe your research at this point, what would you say is the most interesting or most has the most potential to be impactful?
All right. Well, that has been evolving. The kinds of things that I did for research. I started early as an undergrad, and I was interested in many things, as many of us are when we're undergrads. But then
Mhm.
you have mentors, and then you do whatever they tell you to do. But sometimes you develop, you start to like it what they're telling you to do. One of the things that have been impactful, and it's not like I'm super proud of it because this is something that I did as an undergrad. But it's an activity that I really enjoyed. It was the design of heat sinks with liquid cooled heat sinks where we just changed the geometry of the channels in which we were running the liquid inside the device to reduce pressure drop and increase cooling. I don't want to go into the specifics, but that that research came out to be a conference paper, two conference papers, and one journal paper that has received over 100 citations right now.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, that was my undergrad research. And, I was just having fun.
Yeah,
I
that's
honestly
good.
was just having fun.
That's
Yeah, there
good.
was no breakthrough there. There was no, it was just a different way to think about these devices. But it wasn't like a breakthrough. It was just different way of approaching it. And it has been well received by the community. And I get emails and invitations to join books and whatever. But then during my PhD, I came up with this idea that when you have, well, it was about heat transfer at the interface between solids and liquids, and there are many theories. It's super complicated, but again, the way that I think, I try to go back to the basics, and it was like, okay, if you have more liquid close to the solid, you have more energy carriers, and then you can transfer more energy. And that idea had been out there. It was not my idea, but I had an idea to quantify it. And eventually it worked out. And I have tried this different times with my grad students. We changed the system and completely different systems, and we get the same result over and
Oh,
over and over. If we use
reproducibility important.
yeah, I mean, we were using a parameter to characterize the solid-liquid interface, like using wettability. Have you seen how droplets form on surfaces? And based on different surface, you have a different shape of the droplet.
Okay.
Well, people use that to characterize the affinity between solids and liquids. And in those papers, they were doing that. And we said, no, that's not how this works. And we use their method, and it's a mess. Then we use ours, and everything reconciles on a single curve. And we see that all the time. And at some point, we think this is going to be very impactful. And yeah, we're getting into this big research proposal for NIH, in which we think we are going to be able to apply for the first time this highly theoretical work.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's good. Keep me
Yeah,
posted as to what happens as you proceed.
absolutely.
Yeah. So, how have you sort of found the right environment for you to thrive scientifically and intellectually? So, in essence, how or why did you go about doing your PhD studies at Georgia Tech, and how or why did you find, or how have you found Penn State to be a good environment for you to thrive
Right.
scientifically and intellectually?
Yeah, as I said, I think I have been cheating all my life because I have always been surrounded by these amazing people. So
Okay.
yeah, at Georgia Tech, the environment. It's
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
so
yeah.
stimulating. There's smart people everywhere, and there's also sometimes toxic people. They're just stay away from them. The energy drainers. They're
Yeah,
over criticizing everything,
yeah.
over competitive. There's people like that in academia. Over
Yeah, that's
criticizing
true.
and over
True.
competitive. So you have to surround yourself with the right people, people that are stimulating to your cognitive abilities, to your ideas, where you can discuss. So at Georgia Tech, you have that, and at Penn State, it was different. Georgia Tech it's an engineering school, highly technical, super accomplished people everywhere, highly successful people everywhere. I'm not saying that at Penn State that's not the case. That's exactly the same thing. But here, this is more diverse. Georgia Tech, it's tech, right? It's an institute of technology.
Yeah.
Even though we don't even call it a university, right? And we get angry when they say Georgia Tech University or something like that. It
Yeah.
is not a university. It's a technological institute.
Yeah.
Penn State is a university. We
Okay.
have lawyers, we have medical school, we have biomedical school, we have biologists, chemists. It's such a rich environment to find collaborations, to
Mm-hmm.
have a different point of view. So when I left Georgia Tech, it was like a big group with similar ideas in the field of heat transfer. And it was like always going over the same thing, over and over and over the same thing with small variations, looking to get bigger projects and whatever, but it was always the same thing. When I came to Penn State, I realized all the diversity, the different ways to approach the same problem, the different collaborations that you can get, and the input from experts that sometimes verify your ideas. You know, like I have this idea, and I don't know how this works. And at Georgia Tech, I was surrounded by engineers. And then here, I can contact a biologist, I can contact a physical chemist, a computational chemist, and they have much better insight into the things that I want to know about.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, that's good. Diversity is important. And I don't know. You said that you feel like it's as if, and I'm sure you're saying this jokingly, of course. You said you feel as if you've been cheating. I don't know if I would say that. I'd say it's probably just been serendipity or just good fortune on your behalf. Yeah. So.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. But it's definitely good. Definitely good that it's working out. So how do you maintain a view of the bigger picture in your career and in your life in general? So given all the obstacles that people have to face, especially now with the pandemic, how you maintain focus on the bigger picture, thing that keeps you optimistic?
Right. So I think it's the same thing for both, for career activities and for personal life. You need to take a moment. You need to stop. Our lives are super quick. Everything is fast paced. Things are changing quickly with this pandemic, with what's going on in politics, with everything. So at some point, as I'm saying in the job activities, you have to say stop. You have to stop. You have to have a deep introspection of where you want to be in your career, where you are, and then in your family, right? At this point, realizing, okay, I have two small kids going to school. This is what they need. And don't stress about, for example, like other colleagues, they need to learn calculus. They're 7 years old, right? So, that's a way of keeping the bigger picture, like seeing where you are, where you have to be, and how you're going to get there. And that takes time. That takes time for you to stop working on whatever you're doing, on overstressing on whatever is happening, and have, some time to think, right? And establish a plan. Yeah. And this is, again, coming back to the discipline aspect of how you have to behave in your personal life and in your professional life.
Yeah, that's very important. Very, very important. Like from my background, like I have a faith background. So one of the things they say is, they say, it's important for you to one of the verses that says, write the vision and make it plain. So you have to set down goals, you have to write a plan, you have to establish it, and that requires a lot of deep thinking and deliberation. Yeah, it does. Yeah. So in terms of your long-standing interests, how would you, if you could sum it up in short, what have been your long-standing interest in the field of mechanical engineering? Has it been thermodynamics? Has it been like heat transfer, interface heat transfer? What has been your long-standing interest throughout the entire career thus far?
Right, it has changed. As I said, I have morphed into different interests through the years. So it began with renewable energy, believe it or not.
Okay.
Yeah, I was so passionate about that. And that was because of a mentor, of course, right? I mean,
yeah.
And then at some point I had interest in biomechanical or bioengineering, using engineering to make life better.
Okay.
And then during my PhD, I had a lot of freedom because I had a fellowship, that gives you lots of freedom to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So I found the field of interfaces super interesting. I found the problems that were in the literature, and I tried to make a contribution. But yeah, I mean, I think I have many research interests, and it's just a matter of focusing on each one at different stages of your life, right?
Yeah, that's true. It's very true. Because I've had several interests as I progress, and right now I'm leaning towards concentrating on organic synthesis because I'm doing organic chemistry as my sub-discipline within the field of chemistry. for my graduate studies, so I'm leaning towards organic synthesis. And as it stands right now, I like how you put that. You said that you focus on different aspects or different interests at different stages of your career. Yeah, that's important. So just before we wrap it up, do you have any advice to those wanting to pursue the field you're currently working in?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So that would be if, well, what I can say is I can sell you the field of mechanical engineering as a field that is taking up. There are many companies hiring mechanical engineers to do different things, from robotics to manufacturing to control to heat transfer. In my particular field of heat transfer, some cool companies are hiring young students, young professionals. NVIDIA for graphic cards, Intel, Apple, they all want mechanical engineers and they all want thermal engineers. So if you like those cool companies and you like engineering, that's a good combination. Go for it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Thank you so much, Dr. Ramos-Alvarado. It's good to have you on today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. We're glad you were able to tune into this podcast. Once again, this is The New Chemist, where we discuss chemistry, which simply put is the science of change, as well as the other sciences, careers, community, research, and COVID-19. Thanks again for listening. Note, the views on this podcast represent those of my guests and I.